Well, welcome everyone to the IECL virtual space and today's session where we'll introduce you to our response to support leaders through this universally felt challenge of the COVID-19 pandemic. And I know we've still got a few people joining, but we've got a lot to get through in this session, so we'll let people join as they do. Now, my name is Britta van Dijk. I'm the Head of Development at IECL. And together with my esteemed colleagues, Renee Holder and Sean Clement, we're going to walk you through our new portfolio, because some of us know us for other things already, and give you a taste of what your participants would experience on our virtual programs. Now, I think the first thing actually to say is that this is new territory for everyone, in business, in politics, in society at large. And although we've now had the lived experience of COVID-19 for several weeks or even months, depending on your location, the territory keeps changing and will continue to change for an unanswerable period of time in a multidimensional way. And so that's very destabilizing for a lot of people, and at the same time presents opportunities. So quite a multidimensional, strange experience for us all. And you've no doubt been inundated with information about what your organization, your decision makers, yourself, your teams should be doing about this. And what we've done at IECL is to work with our clients on what's needed right now, and also in looking ahead into the future so that you can thrive, not just survive through this new way of being, which we don't know how long we'll carry on for. And we don't know if we'll ever go back to the same way things were. So if we go to the slide for why IECL, and I think quite a few of you on this call know us already. So you may know us for the 20 plus years of experience that we have in developing leaders and accrediting coaches. And that really underpins our philosophy and what we do, that conscious and connected approach to leadership, and how leaders are able to connect with their teams, how they connect with themselves, and really make the most of potential. So our impact really centers on working with the individual in their context. And that really is the human psychology piece, as well as how that interacts with the outer environment, and truly creating that impact that you require as an organization as a result of that. And we really pride ourselves on the relationship that we have with our clients. So, if we're working on a relational level in developing leaders, we need to do the same for ourselves in the way that we interact with the people that we partner with, i.e. our clients. So that's something that we really focus on. And that also makes a difference to the impact that we can have. And so our approach extends beyond that then to, well, what is it that the human psychology is really about in terms of the motivation, the development, and the performance aspect of people, and then in their wider context from a systemic point of view. So that's how we work, and where we work is literally across the globe. So we have almost 7,000 alumni in the coaching space, and quite a lot of facilitators in the leadership development space that work in local contexts in Asia Pac and beyond, and also our experience in working with multinational clients. We've got quite a few of those under our belt as well. So that's a bit about who we are, and what we're going to focus on and work with you on today is what's there in the yellow highlight. So you may know us for coaching accreditation for the more program-based leadership development and team coaching, and what we've extended beyond to now are 3 other offerings that you see here, which really address what leaders need right now. So leading now, how to be conscious and connected and navigate your way through that in this quite crisis type time. Snap and grow, about empowering your people to think autonomously and to make effective decisions, particularly where you have that distance. And then of course, with impact and focus coaching, it's about that accessibility of coaching and the coaching approach to people wherever they are, in whatever need that they have, whether that be about their well-being and sustainability, or whether that be about immediate performance or development. So that's where we're going to go today, into those 3 spaces. And like I said, we'll give you a bit of a taste of what participants will experience when they attend these virtual programs. So there's no better place to start than the obvious, which is leading now. Over to you, Sean.
Fantastic. Thanks, thanks, Britta, and welcome everyone. I think there's about 30 or so of us joining together on Zoom today. And so my name's Sean Clement. I'm the Director of Program Content and Design at ICL. I've been really closely involved in this great word of pivot that everyone's using even more at the moment than usual around, in fact, all of our offers that you would know ICL for are all now available online, and we in fact have two programs running right now today, coaching accreditation programs. So one that is Australia originated, and one that's up in Asia. So they're both running right at this moment as we speak. But in response to what our clients have been telling us about what they also need right now is something that that helps, that's short and sharp, that really helps their leaders deal with the kinds of things that are going on in the world at this moment, in this moment of crisis, this unprecedented change that we're going through. So we'll talk about that in just a moment. For those of you who haven't had, it seems a bit strange even doing a Zoom introduction at this point, seeing as though most people in the world are very familiar with it now, but in case you haven't had much experience, just to make the most of this, because we are going to be asking you to participate a little bit and get a bit of the participant experience as we go through the session today. As you are now staying on mute when you're not speaking, there's a little hack that you might not know about, which is you can just temporarily push and hold down the space bar if you want to just speak for a moment and then release. It's a little bit like a transmit button. If you close as many other windows and programs on your device as possible, it will help with your connection speed. There's a hands up kind of button in the participants box. So if I can ask you to go into, so your little menu down at the bottom of your Zoom window has a little participants box in there. If you click in there, and then at the bottom of that box, you will see that there are some little buttons. So some say yes, no, there's a little more button there that gives you a hand clap or a thumbs up or a thumbs down. So just let me know that you found those buttons by giving me one of those signs that are at the bottom of that participant box. There you go. So a few of you finding those buttons there. Fantastic. So we may ask you to use those to contribute throughout the session as well. Also at the bottom of your, on your bottom toolbar, if it doesn't quite fit in your toolbar, there'll be a little more button with ... It might be under there, but there's a chat function. So if what we'd recommend is that you keep your chat box open throughout the session. So put it to one side of your screen somewhere, or if you're lucky enough to have a second screen, kind of drag it on there, because we will be asking you to participate using the chat function at various points. But also, if you have any questions as we go through, pop them into the chat box, and then we will either answer them at the end of each section, or when we get into the wrap up at the end of the whole session this afternoon. There's also an annotate function. If you go to the top of your screen, there's a drop down that has an annotate option in there, and you can either select a drawing option or a text function or a little star and stamp option. So we may ask you to use that. Some of you already found that when we were doing the games and the word search at the beginning of the session today. And if you want to change your view, then there's a little button, it's normally in the top right of your screen, where you can see people's pictures. That enables you to go to gallery view, where you can see more faces of all you lovely people, or you can go back to speaker view, where it focuses on the speaker. And that panel, the panel of people's faces, you can actually drag to different places around the screen if you need to see different parts of the screen as well. So a few little tips and tricks. And finally, breakout rooms. We'll be sending you out to a breakout room a couple of times, so you get an opportunity to experience how that feels, so to chat in some smaller groups. So back into leading now then. So what is leading now all about? And we've talked about why we have created that. And part of that is around how people are feeling right now. We've got a little poll for you to interact with. And the question on that poll is, how are you feeling at this time of unprecedented change? And if you scroll up and down in there, there are 10 different options. If you could choose your top 2 or 3 and just click on this, confidential, this polling. And then we'll just get a sense of how people are feeling at the moment. And it's interesting that I'll just, while you're filling that out, then at Growth Ops, we've actually been doing a daily sentiment survey in terms of how people are feeling around Australia, and it's been really fantastic and interesting to see the shift over time of how people are feeling across the country. So we've got just over half of you have had a vote now, so just choose your top 2 or 3, and then we'll see what ends up for this group. So I'm not claiming that this holds any statistical or research-based validity. It's just a little spot check of how this group are feeling today, and some of that may be related even to this program itself. All right, so let's just finish up the poll there and share the results. So as you can see, we've got a good split across the board there. So with most people feeling curious. So is that curious in this time of COVID-19? We've kind of moved through that part of the change curve into feeling a bit more like we can experiment and kind of get through to a bit more integration. And hopeful as well is really well up there. But also we're still seeing that kind of anxious, overwhelmed and unsettled coming through. So these are parts of the reason that we created this new product, to really deal with people how they are right now. So let's just take the poll down, John, if you can, and then we'll talk to people a little bit about the leading now content. Fantastic. So this is what we have created. So there are 4 interactive virtual classrooms, and they can run as individual programs. So as a corporate entity, if you want to run those for groups of up to 30 people, they're highly interactive. They use a research base in terms of what the best stuff out there is at the moment. And we really make sure we apply that to people's day-to-day reality. So what's really going to resonate with you and work for you right now with the challenges that you're facing. So if we go from left to right, there's dealing with complexity and ambiguity in challenging times. So that one's got a real system focus. So how do we elevate our view up to that kind of system level and start to think about how we deal with some of these current exponential challenges, but really do that in a way of using conscious leadership. So how do you really make the best of that, retaining your humanity and being kind of the best version of yourself while you do it? And how do we start to address some of those really wicked problems and look at some ways that we can start to make sense of the world throughout this accelerating complexity that we're in at the moment? And thriving through unprecedented change and beyond. And this is really about how do you deal individually and collectively with supporting each other through this change, maintain your focus and continue to make effective decisions. So we really look at how you can also prepare for what comes next. So how do you start thinking about what the future might look like and some of the decisions that we can start to make even now when we're really not quite sure what that might be. Then moving across to that self-focus, so being your best self. So what we've found is that this is really, really applicable to anyone across all levels of an organization, just in terms of given everything that's going on and those kind of responses that you just gave to the poll as well, how can you really manage your own physical, mental and emotional state and support each other's well-being as well? So really using some tools and skills, some really practical tools and skills to help us be our best self more of the time, to acknowledge the things that are going on for us are normal and real and that they're part of our existence at the moment, but then also thinking about how you can move forward with that and how you can start to get your well-being back into a little bit more balance, even though there's so much uncertainty around you. And then the final one, virtual inspiration and collaboration. How do you connect productively and with purpose in this virtual world? So this is really a split between how we work best together while we're spread virtually around the world. And we're just running this program with an organization that is spread all across Asia. So all the way from Uzbekistan all the way through to Fiji. And so how do they lead, inspire, be effective members of teams in this virtual environment? And how do they use the best of the technology that is available and use it in the most effective way, whether that's Zoom or WebEx or Miro or Mural or any of these other great things that we're becoming more and more familiar with as we move into this virtual setting. So that's really what the programs are about and kind of why we've created them. And there's that real focus on kind of leading edge content within them, and then how we apply those or how we help people apply those to their current reality, but also how we demonstrate what good looks like when you're using the virtual kind of media way of doing things, or the virtual medium, I should say. So, so there's kind of those three components that helps people build their confidence in how they use the medium also when they're working with their own teams. If you have questions about these as well, then pop them into the chat box as we go through, and then we will address those as we go over at the end. So for each program, what does that usually look like? Well, we'll work with you for some launch communications and digital engagement. So at Growth Ops, we have great access to digital engagement teams and people who do this work across all different platforms. Complete some pre-work and a bit of reflection beforehand. A 90-minute session facilitated through Zoom or your preferred platform, depending on what you use in your organization. And then we really think about how we help people embed and apply it in the workplace, and then work with you either through your digital platform or through our learning management system to help share those stories and those application pieces afterwards. So I'm just going to give you a little bit of an experience now as to what we might cover in one of these workshops. Now, lots of you who are in this line of work may be familiar with Circles of Influence Concern from Stephen Covey. So we're just going to give you an opportunity to interact with this around something that's going on for you at the moment, and then get out in some breakout rooms for a little discussion. So Stephen Covey, who's unfortunately passed away now, but he wrote 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, which is one of those seminal kind of books in the development space. And one of the really, we say at IECL that all models are wrong, just some of them are useful. And this is one that we find particularly useful, and is useful to people, especially in this kind of current context where we're having to kind of get into that space of making choice. So let's think about the situation that you're faced with at the moment. So it might be, for me, it might be around COVID-19 and how it affects my employment and my family and everything else like that. And when you think of something like that, there are a whole bunch of things that you care about and that come into your mind when you think about that. So everything from government policy to the World Health Organization to different countries' responses to what's going on in the US, to what's going on just down the road with elderly neighbors of ours. There's all kinds of things that come into your mind. But within that, there is a much smaller subset of things that you can actually do something about with your own behavior and the things that, that you can influence, which we call the sphere of influence in the center. And what we find is when we focus on the outer circle, you feel a lot more overwhelmed and a lot more sense that you're out of control and this kind of thing is happening and there's nothing you can do about it. But actually, when you start to focus in the center, so for me, it would be the kind of things that I can do individually in terms of physical distancing and social connection, the things I can do with my family, how I might be able to assist people in my neighborhood, how I can be a good citizen in terms of information that I share that's accurate and not kind of jumping on the fake information kind of bandwagon. So these are all things that are within my own sphere of influence and things that I can do something about. So we're just going to ask you, we're going to give you an experience of a breakout room just for a few minutes. And you'll be in a group of probably 3 or 4. And what we want you to do in that breakout group is think of a work or personal challenge that's on your mind at the moment. We're not going to be sharing this with anyone else, and hopefully you'll, and I would hope you'll abide by the kind of the Chatham House rules of anything that anybody discusses in your breakout rooms also. And consider all the different elements of that challenge that come to mind when you think about it, everything that you can possibly imagine. And then in your conversation, identify the subset of those concerns that are the things that you can actually do something about. And then have a conversation about what happens when you focus on those things that are actually within your control. Now we'll put the instructions for this into the chat box, so they're still available to you when you go out into the breakout room. But you also may want to use your device just to take a quick snapshot, a quick photograph of the screen, so you've got the instructions and the model available to you when you head out to the breakout room. So you'll get a little box pop up, a little dialog box will pop up inviting you to a breakout room. And we're probably just going to spend probably only about between 4 and 5 minutes out in that breakout room. Okay, that's most of you back again. So you had your little breakout group experience. Probably just getting into your flow there when we brought you back, but we just wanted to give you a little bit of an experience of a breakout group session. And hopefully what you noticed, and you can type some of this into the chat box as we go. So particularly around what happens, what do you notice happens when you focus on the things within your control? So just hear from a couple of people, either using your voice, or you can throw it into the chat box if you like as well. Just type that in. So what do you notice when you focus on that, on the things that are within your circle of control? And you can use the space bar to come off mute momentarily. All kinds of things. You feel more in control. There you go. Fantastic. A minimizing of stress, feelings of being overwhelmed. Fantastic. Thanks, Joanne. Thanks, Jonathan. A sense of hope. Goodness, it's like Star Wars. So a sense of achievement, more proactive, accepting and productive, more comfortable and confident. Fantastic. So just really quickly, you can see that a simple 3 or 4 minute activity like that can just really start to help you feel a little bit more in control, a little bit more calm, and that things, there are things that you can do even when things seem outside of your control. And what we notice is that actually the sphere of influence seems to grow, and those things outside seem to minimize a little bit. And that's partly to do with our ability, our attention focus, that when we focus on our sphere of influence, we can't really focus on those things outside, but also in terms of our positive mindset. Virginia, unfortunately, we didn't get past introductions. You're too social, that group. So, but anyway, you'll get a chance to do some other things throughout the session. So that's a little bit about leading now, a little taster of a kind of activity that you might do with the polls or with going out to a breakout group. And I'm going to hand over to my colleague, Renee, who's going to talk to you about the next thing on the list there, which is impact and focus coaching down in the bottom right-hand corner. Over to you, Renee.
Thank you, Sean. Hi, everybody. I'm Renee Holder, as Sean said. I'm the Director of Coaching Programs with IECL by Growth Ops. And today I'll briefly be talking to you about focus coaching and impact coaching, which are our rapid deployment of coaching at scale offerings. Now, just move on to the next slide. Let's take time for a very quick stretch. We're mindful we're already halfway into our session. So in your seat, or even hop up if you have space and move around, take a lap around your chair, or a couple of yoga moves if you know them. Just give it a little bit of a energizer at our halfway point. And then bring it back to your seat or standing desk, wherever you were, and we'll move on. So why engage a coach and why now? It's obviously a challenging time, and we see coaching as being a crucial enabler of people to be able to work through times like this. So what we do know from the coaching that IECL's delivered over the years, and it's over 20 years now, as we said in the intro, we've been working with individuals, teams and groups, and we know that our coaching gets results. And we've looked at this through our experience, but also through our evaluation of our coaching that's conducted. And these are some of the sorts of outcomes that we know coaching achieves. And as you scan your eye down that list, I'm sure you're seeing some things pop out there that would be really useful either for yourself or for leaders in your organization at these times. So, you know, we're all wanting to improve performance and sustain it, but it's also about improving our resilience and well-being through these times too. And hopefully tap into some curiosity, some openness, some new insights and creativity. So we won't touch on each of those, but just know that our outcomes are shown through the results that we get, and there's some of the broad areas where we get results. One of the ways that we'll have a look at this thing, coaching, you know, what is it and how does it work, is by having a look at one of the foundations of our coaching approach. And this is the performance formula, which was originally devised by Tim Galway and adapted by IECL for the purpose of organizational coaching. And it's really helpful for getting to the heart of what coaching is and how it's a different type of relationship and a different conversation from other development conversations that you might have. And so, as it states on the slide, performance, P equals performance minus potential equals potential minus interference, sorry. So performance equals potential minus interference. And coaching is ultimately about improving performance. At IECL, we also believe it's equally important to be focusing on well-being, so that performance alone is not enough. It must be sustainable. So performance is only ever going to be equal to your potential, and that is, expressing your full potential, all that's possible that you can bring to your work, minus interferences. So interferences are all those things that are getting in the way, and there's new things getting in the way now that we're changing the way that we're working. And so when you work with a coach, they believe that you have immense potential. Even if at times you don't believe that yourself, your coach has been highly trained to work with you to enable more of your potential to show up. And we call the potential the gold. So the coach is bringing a mindset of a gold miner. So it's the gold miner's mindset or mentality. So as a coach, I believe that you have the gold, and my job is to help you access it, to bring more of that potential forward. Whereas if I'm your manager, your trainer, your mentor, or a consultant, I have that gold. So I have the answers, the knowledge, the solution, the story, or the advice. A coach brings none of those things. They're well trained to be able to help you bring more of your potential without giving you the answer, sharing their own knowledge or story, or giving you advice. So let's have a look at the interferences for a moment. So if we accept that people can express more of their potential when interferences are identified and worked with, let's work with some common interferences now. So we're going to launch a poll. And although we all know that there are hundreds or even thousands of interferences that might get in the way of us expressing our full potential at work, we've picked just 10 to choose from this afternoon. And they're ones that we're hearing a lot in recent coaching conversations. So we're going to ask you now to select 3 things from the list below, and you will need to scroll to see all of the options. The things that you find yourself are interfering with you performing at your best right now. Okay, we can see the responses starting to come in. Thank you, everybody. Okay, starting to see some trends emerging. Looks like more than half of you have voted so far. Just to invite anybody who hasn't voted to vote now on your up to 3 things that you feel are interfering with you performing at your best. Okay, so I might just pause the polling there. Okay, so we can see by far that the highest response looks to be time or priority management. Very closely followed by lack of confidence. And let's spot our 3rd one. Actually, all of the rest seem to be fairly even. So the 2 that really stand out in terms of your responses was time or priority management, and lack of confidence. Okay, so we're just going to close those poll results. And we'll make sense of that, what we just came up with there as a group, by imagining that you're working with an IECL coach. And as you share these interferences with your coach, you have a good vent, you get it all off your chest if that's useful for you. Your coach is starting to get a picture of the system in which you operate. And it's this 4-quadrant landscape, 4-quadrant map or landscape as we call it, that helps IECL coaches to take a whole system approach when they're working with you. And so whilst we can map the interferences that you selected a moment ago, let's think for a moment, lack of confidence, for instance, would sit up in, say, the top left. That might be something that you are sort of saying to yourself, your self-talk. I'm not feeling confident right now. Or the other might be time or priority management, could fall in a few places. But if, for instance, you felt that you didn't have the skill to manage your time, or there was something for you to learn around that, that might fall in the top right. But there's a bit of a conversation to have around that one to fully explore it further. So whilst your coach would work with you to get a sense of your interferences and to look at this landscape thoroughly, we can also take that approach when we're looking at untapped potential. And the untapped potential also sits in all quadrants of this landscape. And that's what's explored through coaching. So our next activity is around potential. So before we move on, have a look at the landscape and think for yourself, where might potential be sitting for you at this point in time? Just one area. It can be something really small and specific. An area where if you could think differently or potentially take some new action, you'd improve your performance right now. And you don't need to know how. It's just about a potential idea around where you might be able to express some more potential or make some change. So just to share a brief example of my own, I know, for instance, it's been a little while since I checked in with my values. They're really important to me and how they relate to this new way of working and the current sort of challenges and opportunities that I'm facing. So that would be something that would fall into the top left where there's some potential there for me. Whereas bottom right, I also see some potential in being able to utilise our systems a little better. And we use Slack to communicate internally at IECL, and I could probably use it a little bit better in terms of sharing information or connecting with peers. So think for yourself some examples like that, just one, and then we'll move on to the next slide. So as the instruction says on the bottom of the slide, could you use the annotate function from the drop-down menu at the top? For most of you, it will be at the top of your menu bar, annotate, and then click on the large T for text. That will give you a cursor that you can move actually into the body of this slide that we're sharing at the moment, and you can type in your response where potential sits for you. And as you type your response, we'll start to see them emerge on the screen. And as soon as you click outside of your text box, we'll be able to see what you've shared. So if I ask each of you to share just one thing now in terms of where potential might be sitting for you.
So for many people, it'll be the View Options tab at the top of your screen. And if you click on that, then Annotate sits in there. And you click on that and it brings the bar up.
Thanks, Britta. Okay, so mindset, the value I bring. So a reminder around the experience and skills I have. Team culture influence. Okay, so a few skills pieces. So online facilitation skills. Taking action on the ideas, not procrastinate. Team dynamics. Just give it a couple more minutes for people to share where the potential might sit for them. Learning to operate in this new environment. Okay. Team dynamics, knowing who the best person is for the job. So, imagine, and time won't permit to know it today, but imagine you are working with an IECL coach and they were able to engage you in conversation around, okay, well, if that's where the potential sits, let's explore that and what might you like to do with that? And really tapping into that potential. Collaboration, adapting to virtual communication. Great. So hopefully that's been useful for you, even just in a moment of being able to think where some potential might sit for you at this time. So we might, just for the keeping on track with time, we'll move on and just very, very quickly, we'll clear that annotation. Very quickly, just share with you focus coaching and impact coaching. What are they and what's the difference in a snapshot? Essentially, focus coaching is a series of sessions. It's a very short, sharp coaching engagement of only 3 one-hour sessions with an email prompt after each of the sessions. And it's all about broadening perspective, being able to respond with clarity and connect with purpose. So this is for 12 or more individuals who are looking to undertake one-on-one coaching commencing at the same time. In that case, we'll run a launch event or distribute a comms pack, and we have predetermined the focus areas for focused coaching. We don't need a brief and there's no manager or sponsor involved. Whereas with impact coaching, it's all about alignment, engagement, and action. So again, it is looking at rapid deployment of large-scale coaching, so 12 or more individuals commencing together. Again, a launch event, but slightly more sessions this time. And the key difference being that we do take a collective brief. So what is this group of individuals looking to achieve, the outcomes that are required, and a manager or sponsor is involved in the engagement. So plenty of opportunities for questions later or in the chat box or in a follow-up conversation with one of our team if you'd like more detail on those offerings. But for now, I will hand over to Britta to take you through Snap and Grow.
Thank you very much, Renee. So Snap and Grow is really a very targeted approach to helping frontline leaders take all that experience that we have of what works in coaching and taking that to the manager-employee relationship so that they can get the best out of their people. And so I think we're going to have another little stretch break, aren't we? Yes. So this time you can stay in your seat, but we're going to do a little yoga move. And I think John Matthews is on the call, so he already knows I do this in face-to-face programs as well as virtual. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a bit of a wrist stretch. Which, when we spend a lot of time, at our keyboards, our wrists and our hands can really get a bit of a punishment. So if you put your hands out in front of you and then just bend your fingers right back, stretch them right out. So you bend your wrists back and then forwards, and just do that a couple of times, but focus on really stretching your fingers out as far as you can. And then move your arms out to the side and twist your wrists to the front and to the back and give them a bit of a twist that way. And then finally, if you can link your fingers like this, just up over your head, that gives your shoulders a bit of a stretch too. Okay, so, and that's one of the things that, we really focus on. You'll see, what we've been doing throughout this session is giving you a bit of an experience of different ways that we engage participants. And one of the really important things about that, when you look at the human psychology, is for that energy to be variable. So if you're continuously using the same medium, people get very, very fatigued very quickly. And if you change the energy up, and that includes some physical breaks, even very short ones, that helps to increase and maintain engagement and for people to be in that learning space more sustainably. So there is a bit of science behind that. So with Snap and Grow, at a very basic level, it's about the mindset and skills that you need as a leader to be able to take a coaching approach to leading and developing people. You want to maximize their potential, their capabilities and performance. Ultimately, that's your job as a leader. So how do you do that? What are the absolutely foundational things that you can and need to do that enable you to do that? So this is entirely virtual, and I'll show you the learning journey in a moment for the leader. And ultimately what we're aiming for people to be able to do, there's a very classic leadership challenge, which is I need to do more asking and less telling. So I need to ask more questions and do that more pull style of leadership than the more directive style of leadership, because the directive style of leadership can be so limiting. So that is something that we focus on in this program. Coaching in 10 minutes, so it doesn't need to be a long conversation. There are many different types of interactions that you can get to tap into someone's potential and help them to own their performance. And so we teach people to do that. And of course, building and locking in the most effective ways of getting that commitment and results from your people is ultimately the main aim. So the journey itself is 3 weeks. So it's a 5-step process over 3 weeks for the leader. The very first step is to join the community online and get started. So we have a platform that we use, an LMS, but we also can use the client LMS if that's something that you prefer. Then the second step, once the mindset is prepared and you've kind of joined the community online, is to participate in an interactive virtual classroom. So a little bit like what we're doing today, activity-based, really getting people to experience some of those fundamental insights and the behaviors and skills that you need. You take that back into the workplace and practice what we've learned through some assignments, and again, that sort of online discussion. and then into a build on in the interactive virtual classroom, the second one of those, that takes people's thinking and their confidence and competence to the next level. And then it ends with some more application and some practice and completion activities that help you to not only lock in the right behaviors, but also to feel like you're at a certain level. So there is a certification involved in this. So it's not professional coach certification. You can't do that in 3 weeks. You need to join our accreditation programs, which we'll talk about later. But it does, as a leader, help you to hit the ground running. So if we have a look at the next slide, as I said before, the ask versus tell is a really key challenge for many leaders, particularly when they haven't had a lot of development in this relational style of leadership before, around, well, what is the effect of using more of a push style of leadership, which is the directive, telling, showing, demonstrating, evaluating, versus the more pull style of leadership, non-directive, open, asking, exploring, stretching the individual and tapping into that potential. And it's not saying that either of these two things is better than the other in and of itself. It's more coming back to that consciousness as a leader of when is the right approach, when do I use a particular approach to make sure I'm using the right one for the right situation. And quite often what that means for many leaders is using more of those ask behaviors. So for yourself just now, and it might be that you're leading a project team, it might be that you have an actual team that you manage, we're going to use the annotate function again. So think of this model, this levels of empowerment model, as a bit of a whiteboard. And if you think about your approach to your teams right now in this current environment, and sometimes we revert to type when we're under pressure, so we might have learned a few of these ask behaviors and be reverting back to some of the more directive ones when we feel under stress. But if you go to your view options and annotate bar, and there's a stamp button there, which has a little tick on it, pick one of the stamps and just stamp against a couple of the behaviors here that you would say you're doing a lot of in the way that you're leading your teams and team members at the moment. So this is a snapshot in time. What's happening for you right now? So we've got quite a range, which is fantastic, because all of these different behaviors have their place. And one of the things that we do in the Snap and Grow program is we're helping leaders to identify, where's my default? Where do I need to spend more time and what impact will that have? And then actually going away and doing that and seeing what the effect of that is. So if you clock for yourself right now, okay, what's my default? Then you can also then start to unpack, well, where might I need to be spending more of my time and what are the steps I need to take to be able to do that? So thank you very much for participating in that one. The other thing that I'd like to just share with you briefly, if we go on to the next slide, is, we talk a lot about questions and questioning in coaching, and particularly in that, that very subject matter of using more ask behaviors. Well, how do you use the power of questioning? What are the powerful questions that will really help you to open somebody else up and tap into that potential that you're trying to access? So one of the things to think about, and we can just pop the questions up on the screen that I've put as examples, Sean, I think they come up as an animation. There are some simple questions that you can ask, and we've got a few examples here that we're showing you now. The question to ask yourself when you're starting to ask more questions to tap into that potential is, what work is it that I want this question to do? What do I want to achieve by asking this question of this person? And that can really help you to be more conscious about the way that you do that. So the examples that are up here, if someone comes to you with, oh my God, help me out, I've had this issue, I just need to sound this out with you, or can you give me some advice, which is quite often what you'll hear from people. You can help that person without jumping in and rescuing them through the telling, through providing advice and answers. So you might ask things like, what's the situation right now? What's your ideal outcome? How have you approached similar challenges in the past? What's an approach you haven't tried? And what we're trying to do here is stimulate different thinking. So as we did before, if you use your annotate function again, you can click that text button and write your own question here of something that you think might be a great question to ask to open that person up. So I'll give you one more. So I've put what's the real challenge here. And a little hint for you, the best questions tend to start with how or what, because it makes them more open, provides you with more information from the other person, gets them thinking differently more easily. What's the question you don't want me to ask? Yep, I love that one. That's brilliant. And let's have a couple more before we finish up, because we're almost at time, aren't we? And this is sometimes one of the most difficult things when you start out taking more of an ask approach to your leadership. But when people start to really hit the ground running with it, it really makes such a difference. And you know, there's a sense of satisfaction very quickly when people start learning to do this. So what else have we got here? What's the most courageous thing you could do? What do you imagine it might be? Yes, I like that. So the writing's a bit small. I haven't got my glasses on. Sean or Renee, can you have a look at these on a scale of 1 to 10, something? How are you feeling now? Yes, I like that.
What's the real challenge here?
Yep, great.
Fabulous.
And looking back to from the future, what might have worked? Brilliant. So there's some really fantastic questions up here, and we might save these if you wouldn't mind, Sean, and we can add them to the pack that we'll send out later on. Okay, well, so, you know, this gives you a little bit of a taste of what Snap and Grow has to offer. And like I said, it's for leaders who really want to hit the ground running, taking a different approach to perhaps what their default is. So I'll hand back over now to Renee to finish up with the Accredited Coach training. Thank you.
Thanks, Britta. I'm mindful of time and that some of you will need to go within the next couple of minutes, so we'll be very quick with this, but also to let you know that, as always, we're available afterwards to answer any questions that you have or to share additional information if you would like. So Accredited Coach training is not the key focus for our conversation today, but we did want to touch on it briefly and let you know that there are full-length information sessions available on this topic alone if you're interested. And the main message being that we have converted all of these offerings, level 1, 2 and 3, ICF Accredited Coach training to virtual delivery. And as Sean said, there's a couple of those running right now. 8 weeks is now fully online, including the core 3-day component, which is an interactive virtual classroom, similar to the type of thing that we've tried to create this afternoon. I'll give you a taste of. So these are some of the key reasons why clients do really love the Accredited Coach training. And if any of you do want to see a little bit more about why would people choose accredited programs, please don't take our word for it. Have a look on our website. In the section around accredited programs, you will see videos which we won't have time to show you today, but like this one from Jono Srikanthan from Atlassian, where our alumni talk in their own words about why they selected an IECL Accredited Coach training. And it's much better for you to hear that from them than from us. So we will wrap that up there, let you know there are some QR codes here if you would like to scan to find out more information. You can hold your camera over the QR code and tap on the link. And to let you know, we will also be following up with a phone call and an opportunity for you to book an appointment if you would like with Ebba, one of our great client development partners, if you have any further questions or need more detail on anything we've discussed today.
Fantastic. And if you've got any questions that you want to ask right now, if you're okay to finish for a couple, to stay on for a couple of minutes, then we'll be on for another 10 minutes or so. If there's other people who want to chat right now, we'll put questions into the chat box. But if you do have to go right now, thank you so much for joining. Make sure you go to those QR code links and have a look at the landing pages for those specific products. Leading Now is going to have its own landing page, which will be arriving in the next couple of days as well. But Ebba also is going to be sending you out some materials so you can interact with that. So thanks very much again. And yeah, we'll be hanging around on the call if you've got more questions for now. But if not, have a wonderful rest of the afternoon.
Great. Thanks, everyone. Lovely to have you on the line. And